Okay. So my shaded version of my painting that I worked from the grayscale is touch dry now. I'll usually take something and try to make sure there's no little pieces of paint hanging off and smooth it down a little bit. I'll scrape it. Okay. That's much better. And I've got my reference. I have my simplified image reference that I got from my website, and also reference right above it. That's the actual picture. And I like using simplified because it's gets you most of your painting done, and then you could look at the reference, you know. And I got the simplified off the off my that Paint Assist that I showed you on my website. But it's not necessary. If you have your photo reference here, either printed out or on a screen, that will work. So just like we did with the shading, which I have to apologize, part of when I finished the shading, I didn't realize my phone lack of memory had cut out. So you missed the end of the shading, but I spent like another 30-40 minutes after that, and I kept working my shade with a little more detail. Put that a little closer for you to see. Yes, it's overall very dark. But that makes it a good base for me to put paint onto. Alright, so we'll do the same thing again with the color version. We'll start with the darks and go lighter in general. But once I mix the color, I will tend to move around the piece. I don't work from one little spot and work out. I work the whole piece at the same time. On my palette down here, I have titanium white, I have lemon yellow, I have rose red, I have ultramarine blue, and I have a burnt umber. Burnt umber is to help when you want to make a black using the other three primaries. Now, this is basically a primary palette. Often, once you get painting more, the next thing that I would suggest is moving up from have a primary palette, but have a warm and cool version. Have a warm yellow, a cool yellow, a warm red, a cool red, a warm blue, a cool blue, and then again burnt umber or raw umber to help make the blacks, and then titanium white too. Okay, so we're going to start there. I'm going to go in the areas that are the darkest and start with that, which appear to be black. But when I do my colors, I don't like to use straight black. Many artists don't, some do. As a beginner, you could just work with ivory black on your blacks, but blacks, you start doing plein air, you start painting from life, you start realizing that in the deep shadows and stuff, there's always some hint of a color, you know, whether it's reflected light from the ground or otherwise. Okay. Plus, it makes the painting more interesting if your blacks aren't all the same. So, my darkest spot seems to be right in here. So I'm going to. Now you could pre-mix colors. Some people like to do that. You take it and you make all the basic colors you see in your reference and pre-mix it. Make sure you mix enough. But I like to kind of mix as I go because it helps cause a little more variations, and I think it makes the painting look a little more alive. But that's just my opinion. All right, let's get started. So I've got the three sizes of brushes I've chosen. One for small detail, one for just to get a little more better detail, and then one that's a little bigger just to get the big areas, you know, down, and then I can go back in with the smaller brushes. All right, so I'm going to start with my larger brush. So I'm going to mix for a black. It's pretty much a mixture of all the colors, but you're probably a little heavier on the blue a little more red than yellow, a little bit more, and then more blue than the red, and then a little bit of the brown. I have the burnt umber, which a lot of people use raw umber. So let's see what we get here. I'm going to mix a black over here, and there's a good amount of black, so maybe I'll mix a good amount of this. Just a touch of the yellow. Mix that up. Take a little bit of the burnt umber. And basically that's mixed a pretty good black. I'm going to wet my brush with thinner, just not that I want to mix thinner in the paint so much, but just to do my brush for a little more work with that. Makes this easier to mix. Alright, so here we go. Paint some of the larger areas first. Again, it doesn't have to be exact because, usually a painting I do, it's in layers. So my first coat of color, it'll be a little more simplified than the final. And I'll allow that to dry somewhat, and then I'll go back over it, maybe perhaps scrape it down again, and go back over it and keep working on refining the painting. don't be afraid. Take your paper towel and wipe something off if you don't like it. If you do it right away, it'll come right off. And the bottom grayscale is already dry, so you don't have to worry about messing that up. Alright, I'm going to stop. I'm going to continue with the black. I'm going to stop the video for now because you don't need to see every detail. Okay, so I got, a lot of the black down, probably not everything. So now I want to get into, let's see, some other colors. I like to maybe throw in the lights, some of the lights here, just for contrast. And then I can place like greens and blues and reds and stuff in there. And I'll just start moving around. And then when I get a lot of it done, like looking like something, I'll stop the video again and then complete it. And then then the video will restart when that's completed and this layer is done. I'll show you what that looks like. And then the next video after that will be going back over that once it's dry, and darkest darks, lightest lights, some adjustments, and we'll go from there. Clean my brush and the thinner. I'm still using the bigger brush. So let's see, we've got this area here, and the color, it still looks almost like a gray. To my black, the light's hitting that. For contrast reasons, I might put a hint of yellow in there, and then in some of these blacks I'll hint of purple, just to help bring contrast between two strong, versions of a color. So let me add a little yellow to this black, and a little white. Let's see what we get here. If I need more black later, I'll just mix some new black. That's pretty light, so add a lot of weight to that. There we go. And even when you're mixing, you don't necessarily have to mix it to it's perfectly uniform. You can leave it a little bit partially unmixed, and then see what we get here. I'll put this on, but I might go over with a little more yellow. Using the thin side of the brush. I see lots of little tiny details, but I'm not worrying about any of that stuff yet. This actually looks a little blue. Add more yellow. That's because ivory black has a blue quality to it. Let me try with a little more yellow, a bit more white too. There we go. That's a little better. Looks like a green, but I'm going to continue with this for now. I can adjust it later, colors over it. If I like the color but it's slightly off, I can always glaze over it later. white here. Some of the sidewalk. Let's see, we got a little more like white on these signs up here, and then we do some of that, add a hint of the color down here. Maybe a hint of ultramarine blue, the white. Let's try that. Let's see what we get here. Blue over here. did that. I'm going to put in a little bit of the red where the lanterns are on the building. They're kind of in the shadow, but you can still see them. And there's other greens in the picture, so the reds will contrast with that. So I'm going to take some of my rose red. And let's see. Make it maybe a little darker on a hint of the blue. Ultramarine and the red, you know, tends to make a bit of a purple type color, but I'm emphasizing the red and make it really more of a red. So let's see, that would be right here. Not really any detail, but let's see, there's a little hint of red up here. Let's see, any red anywhere else? Let's see a hint of it. And a little bit on these signs. The writing. I'm not going to worry about putting actual letters in, but just put hints of the color in there for now. When I refine it, I could always put small details in if I think it's important. But a lot of times, the painting, what makes it work is more what you keep out than what you put in. Let's see. Alright, so there's the red. Let me put some, I see some green signs. Work on greens a little bit. Clean my brush. So greens, that's blue and yellow. There's that. First I'm starting like a light, colorful green. Let's see if I can get that going. Go. Let's put a little bit of the green in this side. Seems to be a hint of it in there. Let's see, any other signs or anything in green? Maybe a hint of it in here. Okay. Now I see some greens in the background. They're a little bit darker. That means a little more blue in the green. Some of them in. Let's see. I'm just going to kind of scatter some around there, differentiate the background from the buildings. Let's see, this one goes over here. Hinting at where we have some of the plants, trees. Okay. I'm trying to go through everything I would use the big brush for. Okay. Now I see there's a hint of like a reddish brown where there's some wood. So browns, I could use the burnt umber, but you can mix a brown. Mixing pretty much red and green makes your brown. So I've got my green there. I need to make it a little more green. Touch of the umber. Okay, so that's out of we'll wait till that lighten that up a little bit. There we go. Now we can add some of the wood in. Let's see, that would be dark. Might be more of this wood. see any other dark wood. Lighten that up. Yellow, white. And we'll do light blur. Okay. All right. So using some of our darks here. Put some of them back in here. All right. So basically, we've covered the palette. But this is a very, the rough stage of using color. I think it's everything I'm probably, for now anyway, going to use the big brush for it. So I'm going to clean this, put it down, and then from there we'll go to the next size brush. Alright, so this is the first coat with some color. Still lacking, you know, a lot of detail. Still very much influenced by the grayscale underneath it. And I'm going to let this dry, and then we'll go on to the next layer, which will really make it look good. And then after that will be the darkest and lightest lights.